Welcome back to the Better Divorce Podcast. I'm your host, Paulette Rigo, CEO and founder of Better Divorce Academy, author of #1 best-selling book, Better Divorce Blueprint, and yes, the host of the Better Divorce Podcast. Many times I have guests to talk about money, but I think our conversation today is going to be a little unique. So I welcome Tunji Ajigbeda, and we are going to talk a lot about money from a conversation that might wrap around some preliminary work that you could do if you're in the early stages, or if you even haven't gotten married yet, or you're maybe in the midst of moving out of a relationship and starting to think about a new relationship, how people think about money differently. So I welcome Tunji to the show. He's the president and financial health specialist with Moneycopilot, LLC. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Much appreciated, Paulette.
You're very welcome. So, whatever possessed you to want to help people with money?
That's a great question, right? I've been through challenges with money myself through life. I have certainly been in debt, six figures in debt before.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I had to dig myself out. I have been married before, gone through a divorce before. I know that there are challenges that can come with credit and getting yourself out of debt. I think, blessed to be able to have a kind of a mind for math, and was able to learn on my own a lot of things that helped me get out of debt and be able to get on a much more healthy financial footing. And I know that there are a lot of people who suffer from similar types of situations that I can help to get out. I don't think that any of us should be saddled with an amount of debt or financial strain that's going to cause problems, whether it's for us individually or for us in our relationships.
Yeah, I agree. And welcome to the club of all the people who've been divorced. So it's a big club. Welcome to the club. We're very happy to have you here. Some people think of it as this tragic, sad, horrible thing, and it can be. But I also like to think of it as a fresh start. And I believe that there's a
Absolutely.
parallel with money too that way. And, here with the work I do at Better Divorce Academy and, of course, the podcast, we're here to help people master divorce smarter, not necessarily harder, and sometimes even avoid unnecessary conflict altogether. And money is one of those things that people typically argue about. It's usually children, money, or sex, right? Those are the the hot button topics, and I'm sure there are many more, but those are sort of what it rolls around with. As far as the court's concerned, they don't really care about the sex part so much, but part 1 and 2 would be children, part 3 and 4 would be how to equitably divide marital assets and debt too. So
Yep.
that's an interesting way to look at it. It isn't just what you own, but it's also what you owe. So to go off on a little bit of a tangent there, as a mediator where I work with couples that want to avoid litigation, I also work with individuals who unfortunately can't avoid litigation. And there are a few instances where that may in fact either be probable, likely, or you've just got a stubborn pain in the tail spouse who just either wants you to suffer, likes to waste money, and really just doesn't know that there is a better way. Like a lot of people just think, oh wait, you don't have to lawyer up. I'm like, well, you can if you need to, but 97% of cases don't go to trial, and most cases really don't have enough to argue about, and to spend exuberant amounts of money on unnecessary legal fees also leads to more financial crisis. So now we're compounding already having a conflict in the marriage about surrounding the topic of money, and then jumping into the pool of litigation is almost like pouring gasoline on the fire, right? So
Absolutely. Yes.
yeah.
I got to tell you, when it comes to finances, divorce is one of the biggest destroyers of wealth that can be seen. Yes, you're needing to divide things in at least some sort of equitable manner, but because of a lot of the bickering that can come as a result of the fact that we manage finances differently, we may never see eye to eye as to what's the best situation for the both of us. And an attorney is not going to help you with that because that's not their expertise. So if you can't come to an agreement, you're just spending money on the attorney in order to argue, and then money just goes out the window. So there definitely has to be a better way. So I appreciate what you do.
Well, thanks. I mean, you're singing to the choir, hun. So big hug, high five. I'm with you. If you're listening to the audio, I'm nodding my head. There are many different approaches to money, and we'll get into that. But I see as a mediator too, most people buy things they can't afford, don't need. And now, I mean, I have a case right now where we're 99.9% done, and they're arguing over $691 worth of yard equipment.
Oh my
I feel
God.
like going to Home Depot and buying one of the parties $691 worth of yard equipment just so they can stop. It's insanity. Never mind the people that are driving $120,000 Ford F1 900 numbers after at 50s trucks with a $1,200 a month. What are those things called? Car loans,
Yeah,
houses
yeah.
they can't afford, and the credit card debt. I don't want to say. Holy cow, Batman. The amount of stuff people buy is astronomical. I don't know that we necessarily have a money problem. We have a spending problem. It's a problem, and in divorce, it only exacerbates that. So we'll come back to that. But, you're technically retired, right? And then you decided to keep working, which is unusual. And tell us what pulled you back. Was it like, did somebody say, hey, I need help? Or were you just watching all these people suffer? I mean, I can't wait to retire, wink, wink. So he's laughing. So what possessed you to want to get back into the pool?
So I will tell you this. I have a very varied background. I've done cybersecurity before, I've done music production before, and I've had multiple of my own business properties. I've got my rental properties, etc. And the reality is, when you choose to retire, um, you can choose the type of life that you want to have. And I definitely felt like I still needed to have more of a purpose than being able to travel or spending time with the family and young adults that I have and that kind of thing. So this is something that helps to fulfill my purpose. I was good at a lot of things in my life and was able to contribute to different businesses in a positive way. But this actually gets me the closest to some level of satisfaction of a passion that I would have gotten, let's say, with collaborating with other people who do music. Seeing the light bulb turn on when somebody gets it and sees their behavior starting to change in a positive way compared to how they were before is a real positive moment for both of us. And we just have a need for more of that in the world.
Hmm. So what do you see, or what did you see that people were struggling with?
Oh my gosh, I think a lot of the trouble that we have is that many people either don't have a budget or they think they have a budget, but they're not sticking to it and they haven't really planned everything out in that budget. Unplanned expenses catches so many of us by surprise, whether it's we didn't plan for the car to break down and have any money on the side for it, or something happened with the house and we don't have the deductible money for that, or even let's say Christmas holidays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Halloween for the kids. We didn't plan for those expenses to be coming out of our budget. So therefore, they come as surprises and they make us have to consider putting something on the credit card and not paying it off as soon as possible. So unplanned expenses tend to be the biggest thing. And what I try to do with my clients is as soon as they let me know what they think their budget is, we go through the process of basically going through the transactions to be able to figure out or essentially reconcile what the reality is, the things that they've missed. I also have a template that I use to be able to get them to at least true up to that template before figuring out things that might be more custom to their own lifestyle. And the reality is, people grow up differently in terms of how they spend money. I was talking to a friend of mine about this over lunch today, and they said, hey, how is it that two different people can be raised in the same household but grow up to have totally different spending habits? And I just had to say outright, yes, you've got the same household. Yes, you've got the same parents, but differentiating factors include, did those parents spend time with you to get you to practice that muscle of how you not only spend money wisely, but also you grow it for the long term? Did you, and in the absence of that, did you have access to other sources of where you might be able to figure out how to spend money wisely and how to save? Or did you just say, okay, I'm not even going to worry about that because I'm not good at math or whatever? So all sorts of different outcomes can happen as a result of that. And part of my role when I'm working with a client is oftentimes to help them overcome the deficiencies, the things that they didn't learn, so that I can help them to practice and build that muscle, make it stronger on how to spend wisely and how to save so that you have a better future overall.
So what finally made you say someone needs to teach this? Are people teaching this? Are you the first one?
Oh, I am definitely not the first one. Oh my gosh, there's so many people out there, whether it's social media or just offering financial literacy education courses and tools. And one of the things that I found out early on in my own journey, right, is that, I started to do better. I started to be able to travel with my family. I started to be able to put money to the side to be able to do other things that were really important to me. And people noticed and would ask me, hey, how are you doing this? You were just struggling not that long ago. And what I would say is, okay, well, I listened to Clark Howard, who's a local Atlanta financial literacy guy on the radio. I use this tool that's available on a website. I even came up with some of my own tools, and I can send it to you so you can use. And doggone it, every time I would check back in with these people after I'd given them access to the tool or pointed them to the education, and I would be disappointed that they really hadn't made much progress. The light bulb moment came on where I said, okay, well, let me work with them for a little while and see if that makes a difference in what the outcome is. And I found that being able to work with them was actually something that helped to, again, develop that muscle, helped to make it to where they weren't starting from a point of zero knowledge and having to build all that knowledge themselves, because I brought the knowledge with me. I brought some of the discipline and the skill set with me. I brought tools with me that we could then use and check in on a regular basis to make sure that we're making progress. And if they didn't have, let's say it's a couple that I'm working with, or two individual people that are planning to become married, right? They have different spending styles. If I'm working with one, they at least have a third party that's neutral as to how things either should or could go to give them an overall benefit. And then they can pull other people in to say, okay, listen, let's see if we can get some common ground here, as opposed to depending on what's different between the two of us.
Yeah, I love that because I see the exact same thing in divorce. It's mostly, to sum that up, accountability. We aren't taught communication, we aren't taught conflict resolution, and we're definitely not taught financial literacy or divorce literacy. It's just not a language or a comfort level that most people are exposed to. I work with CPAs and financial planners and certified divorce financial analysts, and sometimes they'll say that their spouse spends differently. There is a different style, a different mojo, a different mindset of how to save, how to spend, how to invest. The four things on the domestic relations financial affidavit: income, assets, debt, and budget. And it's required. And a lot of people have a hell of a time, pardon my French, filling that damn thing out. They
You
are
are
so in
so
the
right.
dark. Yep. And I have to
Yes.
do it for them or with them. I don't put in the numbers for them, forgive the word for, but I have to hold them accountable, make them do it, check in on them. They really do need a thinking partner, an accountability partner. They can't do it on their own and they're overwhelmed, and divorce is definitely an overwhelming thing.
I am so with you on that point. The domestic relations financial affidavit, when I had to fill it out, I remember feeling like I was blessed because I had at least put together my own budget. I felt I could pull from that information. It was still time consuming,
It is.
and required a lot of, pulling up information from other sources. But I'll tell you, having someone who can actually understand what's needed for that, I think makes a difference on both sides, especially if somebody is on the side of they're not good with numbers, or they haven't kept up with their finances. They may need help from someone like myself to be able to get that in order, because it's a situation where if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. And that goes the same for the child support worksheet too.
Well, yeah, I mean, the numbers don't lie, but I do jokingly think that in many ways that domestic relations financial affidavit, or another acronym to add to your list, everyone, a DERFA, is a great way to recalibrate your finances. Many people not getting divorced need a DERFA. They just do. Maybe we could get rid of a domestic relations financial affidavit. I don't even think we need to change the name of it. Everybody needs to know what your income is, what your tax ramifications are, what your budget is, what your debt is, and what your assets are. People, I say, what's in your checking account? I don't know. Do you have any investments? Maybe, I'm not sure. They're so in the dark, and I think a lot of them will pass the baton. I'll say, "Oh, my spouse handles that." That is the number one
Right.
problem. Not in my world. That's
Yeah,
not called a
yeah.
marriage. It takes two. I mean, marriage is 100%, 100%. Divorce is 50-50. You have to both be 100% committed if you're going to get married, and if you're not, don't get married. But that's another
Absolutely.
lecture. I think that money is never about money. It's one of the biggest causes of divorce, of financial conflict. I believe, not always, but there's this resentment of dissipating marital funds, spending like a drunken sailor. That was a saying I grew up with. So I love money expressions. Money doesn't grow on trees, right? My father was extremely frugal. Every day he would take out a little piece of paper or a cocktail napkin or wherever we're at a restaurant. And restaurant napkins used to be paper, depending on like casual ones. And he would always have a little pencil and he would write exactly his expense account because he was a salesman and could keep track of those things. My mother, on the other hand, but my mother had her own job and made good income. So, but I was like, okay, should I be more like daddy and be down to the penny, or should it be more like a roller coaster, like money grows on trees? Although, there was always this torture at the end of the year, which to me would be October, to do the taxes. I never saw anyone ever do their taxes in April. And then, of course, I married somebody who never did their taxes in April, too. And it kind of pissed me off. Now, like April 14th, I'm like, this shit is done. Because those people that have K1s and they file extensions and extensions upon extensions, and that goes into August, which goes into October. The next year is over and you've got to jump right back in. So money is a big mindset issue when it comes to marriage. But the question is it really the problem? Or is money exposing something deeper? I think it's more about control. Don't tell me what to do. It's none of your damn business. I'll buy what I want, invest what I want. Or it's like this lack of control, like don't ask questions, I'll take care of it. And that resentment really builds up. And that's really where I think the divorce conflict comes. I don't know if you agree. Tell me what you're thinking.
I think that there's some truth to that, but I also think that there's this aspect of, if we agree that the money is really just a symptom of something deeper, and I think there's a lot of good evidence to show that, then what's the solution? What's the better way to be able to address it if you're not both going to be managing the finances? And I think what tends to be overlooked is because the money is representing other things, what you do for your spouse, what you do for your children, what you do for family, or even for yourself, and whether that's all in good proportion to how people like to feel valued. Sometimes it does take not just, even if it is a marriage or a relationship where one person is managing the finances and the other person is essentially let that person take control, however they manage it, if they need a third party to help them make sure that it's more equitable in terms of what the results are, they should do that. They shouldn't feel shame of, okay, I'm supposed to, know everything and, do everything with the finances. If you need help to be able to make sure that it's going to be right, especially if it's going to help in preserving, improving, or in some cases just saving your marriage and your relationship, you should get the help. There should be no shame around doing that. But I see that a lot of men have that shame because, again, the expectation is we should have it together already.
Yeah, I don't know that it's a gender thing, but I'm not a guy, but I see it in mediation a lot. And there is that bravado feeling of like, I got this. Uh, but it just depends. Everybody's different. Sometimes it is the wife that's, you know, keeping track of the income and the outcome with the bills coming in, paying the bills. And sometimes it's the husband. I really am excited and what's the word? Mo very God, it doesn't take so much to
Encouraged?
get me speechless. But that's a good one. Encouraged. Yes, I'm very encouraged to see spouses that can have a conversation about money without cursing and yelling at each other, but when they really talk about money from a place of integrity versus trying to be like, I got this, don't, I got you. So it's rare. I know the find of the word inspired. I'm
Uh-huh.
inspired by couples. I was like, I know the word, it'll come to me. I find it very inspirational when I see a couple that can break down the past, those old patterns of like, we were joking about my dad wrote it on the napkin and my mom was like, whatever. Don't tell your father I bought that. Like we hear those little messages as, I was like 6, so, I had nothing to do with it, but you hear those little messages. Of course, those patterns will repeat.
Yeah.
I see it
Yeah.
a lot.
So one of the key tactics that I'll use is that when working with money, you need to give every dollar that's coming in a purpose. And that's whether it's for the bills, utilities, and mortgage, et cetera, or if it's for, we want to be able to preserve our date nights. We want to be able to entertain every once in a while. We want to be able to go on trips and do vacations. The purpose should be there so that there's enough funds to be able to really support the shared values that you have in that relationship. It's when those things kind of divert from each other that you start to see problems and one person doesn't feel like they're being valued enough. And if you can get, again, the help of a third party, if you need it, to help kind of set that direction for you, not where you're being told what to do, but where that third party is your sidekick. You choose the direction, and they just help you to fulfill it and execute. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Very nice. So let's think about when you're working with someone or when you're meeting someone for the first time. Are there warning signs, or what are the warning signs that tell you that this really isn't a money problem? It's more of a mindset problem or a childhood money story problem.
Uh, um, so I'm going to say it's the level of repetitiveness of the stories. And then it seems to happen over and over again, and neither side can really put their finger on why it's happening, but they see that it's happening and it's irking one side more than anything, right? And so as a result of that, it requires digging a little bit deeper as to what it is, facilitating what we need to do in the meantime so it doesn't damage the finances in the relationship, but understanding that there is something a little bit more. And then as you kind of develop that relationship, it may be time to figure out let's get that person to make some choices, because it's at the point of making choices as to what you want to do in the future that some of this stuff may come out as to why you were doing it in the first place, and whether or not you can make the sacrifice to no longer do it or reduce it or whatever seems most acceptable to you. If I tell you that you going to Starbucks every day, right, is causing a problem to where you're not going to be able to go on vacation this year. Do we want to go on vacation this year? Or do we want to plan it for next year, postpone it so that you can go to Starbucks the rest of the year,
Great
right?
example. Sure. Yeah.
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 So thinking through those process, talking it through,
Mhm.
I find that as people start to go through the program that I have, which I usually recommend do like 6 months to get the right type of behavioral change, I find that people start to go through it and they'll start to think through that process because we're going through their transactions, their budgets, we're looking at their credit and seeing which categories each of those items fits into so that we can actually evaluate, all right, we're overspending on beauty and hygiene right now, but we've underspent in maybe the vacation area, or maybe we're not planning on going on vacation this year. So that money can be reallocated. It makes the whole budget aspect become much more of a living, breathing thing that can adapt to how you live as opposed to being something that is just rigid, that doesn't allow any room for flexibility. And that flexibility can make it much more livable and make it to where they can start exercising in their own mind about how they can take ownership of what's necessary to keep the finances in a healthy condition moving forward. Because they're going to want to do things. They're going to want to put the goals that they have and make them align to whatever finances that they have. And if they can wait for something, be patient, maybe there's a big payoff.
Yeah. So, do you find in the work that you do, that if a couple comes to you and they're arguing about money, when is the best time for them to bring you in? Does it go parallel with therapy, after therapy, before attorneys, or is there an optimal time for them to bring you in?
Uh, okay, so I'm going to give you two answers to that.
Sure.
I think, like most people would say, before you get into the problem, you want to get some help in making sure that you're going in the right direction. And I say that with the fully understanding that we all were not raised in the same way. So there's going to be some differences. And if you can get in touch with someone, whether it's myself or any of the other hundreds of daily money managers that are out there, to kind of get on a particular track, that is helpful before you even run into any of the issues. Because then you have somebody that you can refer your partner to say, hey, this person is actually helping me, and a third party to be able to be neutral with any of this stuff. You may or may not want to work with them, but if you want to get a perspective on how I think, whether it's through me or not, you join me for one of these sessions. Now, with that said, what tends to happen is that I don't get involved or pulled in until there's some sort of issue or crisis, right? And I think that's the same case with, you, divorce attorneys, et cetera. There's something that's causing a pain point that causes them to search us out. So in that type of situation, it can certainly be done in parallel with therapy because there are times where I may find a behavioral aspect that the organic process that I follow won't address. Sometimes there's OCD type of behavior that can come into play, shopaholic and gambling type behavior that can come into play. And that certainly needs more than just the financial support that I can provide. But, once you see that there is an issue, not even an issue, a difference, value difference between how you see and spend money and how your partner sees and spends money, that's the time to say, okay, if we want this to work, we're going to have to find a middle ground. And we may not be able to do that by ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds very similar. I mean, I love mediation or alternative dispute resolution mediation because it gives couples tools before everything falls apart and you're forced to have a judge decide. And I can imagine that money coaching does something similar. You're actually giving them tools and resources and tips and, dare I say, tricks. Don't want that to sound like you're cheating, but in a way that they're actually able to have a specific roadmap or blueprint, as I call it, to get from point A to point B, which I assume would be to get out of debt, save money, invest their money properly, be aware of those 4 buckets that I mentioned, and also to raise their credit score. I find a lot of them just have they're almost embarrassed to talk about their credit score. And one of the things that comes up in mediation a lot is who's keeping the house. That's a big issue, right? Is it the wife that's keeping it? Is it the husband that's keeping it? Are they going to sell it? Are they going to sell it now or at a later date? I mean, there are many different options. And I'm fortunate that my husband is a certified divorce lending professional. And in mediation, I can pull him in, leave the room, and let him speak to the couple regarding the home. I usually come back at some point, but, I try to make sure they have that private conversation about the credit score and all, or their debt to income ratio, as I've learned to call it, another acronym to add to my list, DTI, right? So they don't even know what it is. Like, well, are you even eligible for the new mortgage? Because you can't divorce with the same mortgage. You're either married or you're not. I use the analogy, it's kind of like being pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not. So I know it's kind of graphic, but you are or you aren't, and you either have a mortgage together or you need a new one. So you got to separate that you can't keep your name on a mortgage for a property you no longer own and then get divorced. It doesn't quite work that way. So there's a lot to worry about. And then, many times in divorce, the judge will say that the spouse can keep the house and they have 6 months to refinance, only to find out that the mortgage company or the bank or the lender is like, well, that's nice that the judge said that, but you don't qualify. So you're setting them up for failure, which is something I refuse to do in mediation.
Absolutely. And I love what you said in terms of being able to establish the roadmap for them to follow, because one of the things that I do in even my public speaking engagements, I'll talk to people about the roadmap to wealth, right? It's not so much just you're trying to be comfortable, but the wealthy folks in this world already have what I call the 9 buckets of wealth, okay? And people who are not wealthy, they may only get up to the 3rd bucket. 4th bucket if they're lucky, which is the emergency fund. I help people to understand that when it comes to being able to fill these different buckets of wealth, having a budget, a comprehensive one, and sticking to it is one way to help you accelerate that journey, as well as having good credit and maintaining good credit is another way to help you accelerate that journey because of what comes along with that in terms of keeping expenses in check when you use it responsibly. And then when I'm talking to the clients in the first place, you talked about the roadmap. It's like, if we start out with the vision of we want to be able to have something in each of these 9 buckets of wealth, once we're done, that gives us the objective of being able to fill more than just those first 3 or 4 buckets.
Yeah. Do you mind telling us what all 9 of them are? I'm curious.
Okay, I can certainly give you portions of it because there's multiple things in the different buckets. All right, so there is initially your checking account, which could be a personal checking account. It could be a business checking account, depending on whether you're in business for yourself or not. Okay. The next thing would typically be having a savings account that you're going to put in for maybe annual expenses, things that don't come very frequently, right? Maybe things that come once a year or quarterly or whatever the case may be. Another bucket is going to be your flexible savings account or health savings account to be able to help you to handle your health expenses. Because if you're not healthy, you're not really going to enjoy your wealth anyway. And I would add to that, since that is related to insurance, it's also having other types of insurance to backfill your income from the checking and the savings if something were to happen to you if you pass away. So life insurance is another one, disability insurance, that kind of thing. Then you have your emergency fund. Contrary to popular belief, it's not the same as the savings account that you use for your annual and quarterly expenses, because the emergency fund is something that you only use when income goes away. You're let go, fired, you decide to quit, or for whatever reason you decided to retire early, or even if it's the case of a business, you have a bad few months in terms of revenue and profit, and you need to be able to survive on something. When income goes away, the emergency fund comes to play. All right. After that, you have the real estate bucket, which is basically either you've got your primary home and or some rental property that goes along with that. And then you have a passive income bucket. Now, I differentiate the passive income bucket from, let's say, long-term planning buckets, because that is something that you wouldn't put in a tax-advantaged account. Maybe you have it in a brokerage account, you've invested in stocks, you've invested in products that you created or services you created. Maybe you sold insurance for a number of years and you're getting residuals from that. Maybe you created music and you're getting royalties, or did something in acting where you're getting residuals from that. Passive income helps you in situations where, again, you lose your job or something like that. It helps you to extend what you can do with your emergency fund, right? When you combine the two, you're able to last a lot longer in case of an issue. Then you have your tax advantaged accounts. So IRAs, Roth IRAs, these are things that will help you for the long term in terms of just retirement planning. And you can, of course, work with a financial advisor or broker to make that happen, but that is another bucket of wealth. Then you have educational expenses for your young adults, yourself included if you wanted to go to school and do something, but at the very least to be able to have something that is tax advantage for education for your future young adults would be helpful. 529 plan, Coverdale plans, and things like that help in being able to put forth money that will basically stretch further. And then the last bucket is really a much longer term view, again, that you work with a financial advisor for, in order to be able to have, let's say, alternative assets. Sometimes it's art, sometimes it's other types of diversified types of stocks and ETFs that are outside of the tax advantaged accounts, and as well as outside of your regular brokerage accounts, because it's really long-term money. The wealthy have all of those buckets, whereas, again, we tend not to go past the first three or four.
Beautiful. That was very helpful. I hope everyone was listening and took some notes. So you can always rewind and listen again. So if someone is listening, feels embarrassed because perhaps they've made past financial mistakes, what would you tell them?
So first thing, welcome to the club. I've done the same.
It's a big club, right?
It's a big club. So what matters is what you do after that happens. In Christianity, we are all sinners and we all have to confess and go to Jesus Christ in order to be able to recover, to be saved, right? Whether we fall down and we hurt ourselves and then we have to dust ourselves up in order to be able to get up and do the next thing, what matters is what you do afterwards. Getting help is a big part of what matters, what you do afterwards. And getting help from the right sources will at least give you tools and education that you didn't have before to help you lessen the chance of falling down again. Doesn't mean that you won't fall down again, because life puts challenges in front of us. But with the additional help of those third parties, whether it's myself or another money coach, would help you to avoid future situations where you're even having to deal with shame then. Because fool me once, shame on me, right? Fool me twice, shame on you, etc. I don't know how that particular phrase goes, but either way, it matters what you do afterwards.
Yeah. It's fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Thank you, Paulette.
Yeah, you're welcome. I know I've worked with a lot of fools. I get it. So it's all about what is the lesson, right? There are 6 stages of grieving when we go through divorce: shock and denial, sadness, negotiating and bargaining, anger, surrender, letting go. And finally, what is the lesson? As Albert Einstein says, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different
Different
results.
results.
You're
Yes.
doing that with your money, it's going to keep happening. So, what's one daily habit that people can implement to change their financial health?
Stop putting on blindfold or blinders to what is happening in your finances. If you're not um, aggregating everything into, let's say, one application that will let you see all your accounts, whether it's credit cards, um, bank accounts, loans, etc., in one place, at least do that so you can see the problem. And then
Hmm.
once you see the problem, hopefully you'll start to be able to do things to be able to address it.
Love it. Do you have a favorite financial app that you suggest people use?
I am partial to one that's called Empower. I know that Credit Karma gets a lot of advertising around it, and it's not a bad solution at all. I just don't like giving my social security number. So,
I agree. I know. Old school with that. So, and finally, I know this isn't necessarily a conversation about divorce. Money has a lot to do with it, as we've clearly discussed. But what does having a better divorce mean to you?
oh man,
If you have
I'm
to
gonna
have
put it this
one.
way. I'm gonna put it this way. Um, Not everyone needs their former partner to be their friend or to be friendly with them after a divorce occurs, but life sure is better if that can happen.
Sure.
And I think a better divorce that preserves both parties' ability to at least stay in the same room with each other and be cordial, that's the key.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's always great if you can, but if you can't, what do we say? Pick yourself up and dust yourself off and try
That's right.
again. So, thank you so much for this conversation and reminding us that health uh, and wellness also has to do with financial health, but it isn't about perfection, it's about intention. I love this conversation. If you are struggling with finances, you find yourself in debt, you want to get better at handling money, having all those buckets that he discussed so beautifully, what is the best way for people to learn more about you, follow you, and perhaps reach out to you and have a conversation?
Oh, yeah. So, of course, Moneycopilot is the company name, and you can see us on moneycopilot.com as our website. We're also on majority of social media platforms in terms of promoting what we do from a financial literacy education perspective. I also promote whenever I'm doing public speaking engagements, but I primarily spend my time, if it is social media, on LinkedIn, not so much the other platforms. The information that is on the website has ways to be able to get in touch with me. You can, of course, choose to call our number, 770-844-7100. I happen to be extension 1001, or you can email me at tunji@moneycopilot.com.
Perfect. And do you work with people outside of the Georgia, Atlanta area?
Indeed, I do. Now, I will tell you, I'm part of an organization called the American Association of Daily Money Managers, and they are a nationwide organization that basically cultivates money coaches. We have background checks, and so much of our work is tied to a set of conforming standards and ethics. So if you, for whatever reason, need someone who's more local to meet with, that organization can actually help you find somebody who's more local. But yes, I'm able to help anyone in the 50 states.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time. I know firsthand how often the word money comes up in mediation and in coaching, and filling out that, yes, domestic relations financial affidavit is part of the whole journey, whether you're mediating, collaborating, arbitrating, litigating, or trying to DIY it. I can help. And thanks for finding me and this episode, everyone. If you are looking to privately mediate, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help. It pains me to see people struggle. I help couples avoid court, save all the unnecessary legal fees, keep their private life private, which is an important aspect of it. Litigation is public, and divorce a lot faster or swifter with a lot more grace and dignity and success. So thanks everyone for
Amen.
listening. Yeah, I agree. Amen. Have a wonderful 4th of July to everyone listening. I know this probably will be after that, but hope you all having a great summer and spend wise and save wise. And thanks again, Tunji.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
I'll see you all next time, everyone.